Imagine your town just landed this, massive $5 billion tech
Oh,
investment.
that's the ultimate political win right there.
Right, exactly. The mayor is on the evening news cutting a ribbon. The headlines are screaming about this whole new era of regional prosperity. And, I mean, the whole thing just feels like a massive victory.
Naturally. It looks like a total game changer for the local economy.
Yeah, but fast forward 3 years, suddenly your local utility bill has completely doubled. There are these strict drought restrictions, meaning you aren't even allowed to water your lawn in the summer.
Yeah.
And that new hospital your county was supposed to build, it just got indefinitely delayed because, well, there literally isn't enough capacity on the electrical grid to power it.
And that whiplash. I mean, going from sheer celebration to a structural crisis, it is becoming incredibly common right now.
It really is.
We are seeing municipalities absolutely scramble. And it's mainly because they apply this old 20th century economic playbook to a completely 21st century infrastructure reality.
Right. Which brings us to what we're getting into today. We are looking at a stack of structural analyses for this deep dive to understand why that old playbook, just simply attracting business, is actively backfiring in the AI era.
It's totally backfiring.
Specifically, we're digging into this really fascinating piece of research from the Global Operations Alliance. It's their 56th thesis on municipal economics.
Right, the GOA-56 thesis. It's pretty famous in urban planning circles.
Exactly. And our goal for today, our mission for you listening, is to really understand why attracting a massive AI data center, it just isn't a straightforward win about jobs and taxes anymore.
Not at all.
It is actually this high-stakes, long-term negotiation over who gets to control and really cooperate your region's fundamental infrastructure well into the future.
And that shift from a company just being a tenant in your town to
Right.
actively controlling its operating system, I'd argue that's the most critical economic transition happening at the municipal level today.
I completely agree. So let's start by addressing the baseline assumption most of us have, because when we see a massive warehouse-sized building going up on the edge of town, I think our brains immediately map that onto the traditional model of a factory, like a car factory.
Sure, because physically, the footprint looks practically identical from the highway.
Exactly, just a huge concrete box. But GOA-56 makes it really clear that the underlying mechanics of how those two facilities actually interact with the town, they couldn't be more different.
Yeah, the difference really comes down to the continuous economic engine, like what a traditional facility provides versus a data center.
Right?
It-
Break that down a bit.
Well, when a conventional auto plant rolls into a region, it obviously strains local resources, but it also brings thousands of ongoing full-time jobs.
You've got line workers, managers, logistics teams.
Exactly. And all those people are paying local income tax. They're buying groceries, supporting local diners, buying houses.
So there's this massive continuous circulation of human capital.
Right. And that circulation naturally offsets the physical footprint of the factory.
The people essentially pay for the pavement, is how I like to think of it. The strain on the town's water and power, it's just subsidized by the sheer volume of economic activity happening every single day.
But AI data centers completely break that equation.
Because they're basically empty, right?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, they require an astronomical amount of capital to build, but once the facility is operational, the permanent human headcount is shockingly low.
We're talking like, what, 50 people?
Maybe. You might have a few dozen security personnel and some hardware technicians managing a multi-billion-dollar site. So you don't get that continuous large-scale injection of local spending.
Huh.
And more importantly, data centers don't just consume utilities the way an auto plant does. Because of their immense scale and their demand for absolute, unbroken reliability, they begin to physically merge with the town's infrastructure.
Okay, so if the jobs aren't there to offset the footprint, we have to look at what is actually happening in the negotiation room. Like, what is the region giving up and what are they actually getting in return?
Right, because the old math doesn't work.
Exactly. And the GOA-56 framework breaks this transaction down into 4 distinct layers of exchange. I want to walk through these because they fundamentally change how we should view these deals.
That's a great framework.
Let's start with the first one. The first layer is the capital exchange, which seems to be, the only one that actually makes the evening news.
Yeah, the capital exchange is just the visible tip of the iceberg. The tech company brings construction money and promises of future property taxes.
And the town gives them what? Land?
Right. The municipality provides the land. They push through the zoning permits really fast. and they often hand out some fairly hefty tax abatements to win the bid in the first place.
So that's the classic public relations win. Everyone loves that part. But the second layer, the capacity exchange, that's where the hidden costs start to materialize,
Right.
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because they aren't just taking up acreage, they're consuming finite municipal potential.
So explain the capacity exchange for us.
Well, to understand it, we really have to talk about the physical reality of AI training clusters. These facilities aren't just, rows of hard drives sitting in a cool room.
Right, it's not like an old 90s server farm.
No, they are packed with these ultra-dense microchips processing billions of calculations a second, and that generates an incredible, almost unbelievable amount of heat.
Which they have to cool down somehow.
Exactly. And to keep those chips from literally melting, data centers use evaporative cooling towers. Those towers can consume millions of gallons of water every single day.
Millions of gallons every day. That is wild.
It is. And at the same time, they require hundreds of megawatts of electricity. So what the region is giving up in this capacity exchange is its limited connection capacity.
Because there's a cap on it.
Right. There is only so much water in a local aquifer, and there's only so much power a regional transmission line can safely carry before things break down.
Which introduces a totally zero-sum dynamic. If the data center secures the rights to 3 million gallons of water a day, well, that is water that cannot be allocated to a new housing subdivision next year.
Right. Or like a semiconductor manufacturer down the line.
Exactly. The region is literally trading away its future growth capacity.
And that leads directly into the third layer, which the GOA thesis calls the stability exchange.
Okay, what does that mean? Stability of what?
Stability of the power grid. AI training models are incredibly fragile while they are running.
Fragile how?
Well, if a massive computational run drops power even a few milliseconds, just a blip, it can corrupt weeks of work.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that costs the company millions of dollars in lost time. Because of that, the tech company demands perfectly stable, uninterruptible power from the local grid.
So the burden of that perfection falls entirely on the town.
Exactly. It isn't just about supplying the power, it's about guaranteeing it never ever blinks.
So how does a town even guarantee that?
That's the problem. The local utility has to maintain massive backup reserves. They might be forced to keep these older, super expensive natural gas plants running just to provide baseload security for the data center.
Just in case the main power dips.
Exactly. Which increases maintenance costs across the entire regional grid.
That makes sense. And that operational strain creates the fourth and final layer, right? The legitimacy exchange.
Yeah, and this one is purely a political and social burden.
Because eventually the residents are going to notice.
Right. When the grid is stressed during a massive heat wave, or when the local reservoir dips to dangerous levels during a drought, the local government is the one who has to face the music.
The mayor has to stand at a podium and explain to the residents why their water rates are suddenly spiking.
Or why they are facing rolling blackouts, yeah.
Yeah.
All while the data center's cooling towers are legally guaranteed priority access to keep running.
Because of that ironclad contract.
Exactly.
Okay, but wait, let me push back on this a bit, just to play devil's advocate.
Yeah, sure, go for it.
Because I read an article recently about one of these major tech giants moving into a Midwestern town, and they actually paid to construct a massive solar farm and a brand new electrical substation.
Right, I've seen those deals.
So if the tech company is footing the bill to build new green infrastructure to handle their own load, doesn't that solve the capacity issue? I mean, isn't that just a standard win-win public-private partnership?
It's a really compelling narrative, and they
Mhm.
push it hard. But we have to look at the difference between dedicated capacity and shared capacity.
Okay, explain that.
Well, if a company builds a solar farm, that sounds fantastic, right?
Yeah, totally.
But solar is intermittent. It only generates power when the sun is actually shining. AI data centers, however, run at 100% capacity 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Oh, right. So when the sun goes down.
Exactly. When the sun goes down, that facility still needs hundreds of megawatts of power. So who provides it?
The local grid.
Yes. The local utility has to step in, drawing on their own baseload power, which massively strains the regional grid during peak evening hours when everyone is home cooking and running their AC.
I see. So the tech company gets the PR when, the headlines about building the solar farm, but the town is left holding the liability of actually balancing the grid every single night.
Exactly that. Furthermore, even if they pay to build a new substation, say they drop $50 million on it, if their facility is designed to consume 95% of the power that substation routes, The town hasn't gained any meaningful capacity for its own future use.
They just got a substation they can't even use.
Right. And worse, the town just inherited the long-term obligation to physically maintain and manage that substation for the next 40 years.
Wow.
So the large monetary investment upfront simply does not equal equivalent local value.
That completely reframes the dynamic. It reminds me, honestly, less of a traditional real estate deal and more like, I don't know, going to a group dinner.
A group dinner.
Yeah, like where one person orders the lobster and the expensive wine, but everyone is expected to just split the bill evenly at the end of the night.
That is a fantastic analogy. I love that. And it perfectly illustrates what GOA-56 calls the asymmetry of exchange.
Asymmetry of exchange.
Right. The key to this asymmetry is that the benefits and the burdens do not emerge at the same time. The timing is completely fractured.
The tech company gets their benefits on day one while the town's costs are delayed.
Exactly. The company's benefits are locked in via these ironclad contracts before the ground is even broken. They secure their guaranteed land, their locked-in utility rates, and their priority water rights immediately.
But the town's portion of the bill doesn't show up until dessert.
Exactly. The region's costs trickle down years later. You see it in year 3, when grid congestion causes utility prices to hike up for residential ratepayers.
Right.
Or you see it in year 5, when a local manufacturing business tries to expand, but they're told the grid just can't handle their new equipment.
And this brings up a massive blind spot in how we talk about municipal economics. We tend to frame these negotiations as, like, the company versus the region.
Right, as if the region is just a single guy sitting across the table taking the deal.
Exactly. But the region is incredibly fragmented.
It really is. It's a fractured ecosystem of actors. You have the mayor, the city council, the private utility companies, the local landowners, the residents, and existing businesses.
They all have different stakes.
Exactly. And the structural flaw here is that the actors who reap the initial benefits are almost never the same actors who absorb the delayed costs.
Let's break that down. So the farmer who sells 500 acres of land, they get a life-changing, multi-million-dollar payout.
Yes.
And the mayor gets the ribbon-cutting ceremony, the political capital, and a billion-dollar investment, and maybe a nice bump in the poll numbers.
But neither the mayor nor the landowner is the one absorbing the localized strain.
It's the regular people.
Right. The residents are the ones who face utility hikes. The regional telecommunications providers are the ones suddenly dealing with wildly distorted bandwidth demands.
So a corporate contract of this magnitude fundamentally reorganizes the priorities within the municipality itself.
That's exactly what it does. It effectively decides which segments of the community get to thrive and which ones are forced to subsidize the friction.
So, okay, if the structural reality is this skewed and the hidden costs are this severe, it begs a very obvious question for anyone listening.
Why sign the deal at all?
Exactly. Why don't these towns just negotiate better terms? You know, demand infrastructure upgrades that actually serve the public, or just require the company to pay for the baseload power liabilities up front?
Well, the primary barrier to that kind of negotiation is time.
Time.
Yeah. We are looking at a profound velocity mismatch, what the thesis sometimes refers to as speed shear.
Speed shear, I like that term.
It's the inherent friction that occurs when a hyper-agile system collides with a structurally slow one.
Because AI development operates on a software timeline. I mean, tech companies decide they need a new training cluster, and they want to break ground in 6 months, right?
Yeah, they want servers humming within 2 years.
Right. But public infrastructure operates on a generational timeline.
Exactly. Expanding a municipal reservoir, running high-voltage transmission lines across a county, or even just conducting environmental impact studies, these processes take a decade or more.
Not to mention the politics.
Right. They require democratic consensus, town halls, regulatory approvals.
So the speed of the AI investment completely short-circuits the town's ability to actually plan for it.
That's it. The velocity mismatch creates a massive structural loophole for the tech companies. The land purchases, the facility zoning, and the physical concrete pouring, they all advance rapidly, long before the public or the regulators have a chance to fully model out the 10-year infrastructure burdens.
So the building is basically up before anyone realizes the water is gone.
Exactly. By the time the city council is holding a tense town hall meeting to explain why water rates have jumped 20%, the data center is already fully operational.
Wow.
The investment happens instantly. The long-term friction is shifted to the region's internal systems to deal with after the fact.
Because of that sheer speed, towns aren't just giving away water and power at a discount. They are effectively giving away the authority to define the master plan of their own region.
And this is the core warning of the GOA-56 analysis. Due to the scale of these facilities and the velocity at which they are deployed, AI companies are no longer just massive users of local infrastructure.
They're changing roles.
Yes, they are actively shifting into the role of partial operators of the region's fundamental systems.
I want to dig into the actual mechanics of how that happens because, I mean, we aren't talking about tech CEOs literally sitting in the town planning office and drawing up maps, right?
No, it's much more subtle than that.
So how does a corporate entity functionally take over a town's operating system?
It happens through the quiet, highly complex language of technical specifications.
Okay, break that down.
Well, an AI company doesn't approach a town and say, hey, we'd like to buy some electricity and water, please.
Right.
They arrive with hundreds of pages of highly precise engineering requirements. They specify the exact cooling redundancy they need, the specific routing of multi-line fiber optics, and the exact fault tolerances required from the local power substations.
And a local, mid-sized municipal government, they simply do not have the cross-sector system architects on staff to independently evaluate what those requirements mean for the town's grid 20 years down the line.
They don't. I mean, a municipal planning board is used to zoning retail spaces or, residential subdivisions.
Right, maybe a new strip mall.
Exactly. So when faced with a multi-billion-dollar corporate engineering spec, they naturally deferred to the experts in the room, which happen to be the tech company's engineers.
Which makes sense in the moment.
Sure. So the town adopts those technical requirements as the baseline for their own municipal upgrades.
So to put that in a real-world scenario, if the tech company's engineering document says, we require 3 disparate fiber optic routes and a redundant looping water main capable of delivering thousands of gallons a minute to our site, the town just approves it to secure the deal.
Yeah, and in doing so, the corporate specification becomes the de facto blueprint for how the city builds its future public infrastructure.
They just follow the tech company's lead.
Right. The town planners are now digging up Main Street, laying public pipes, and routing future housing developments all around the tech company's operational necessities.
Wow. So even without any malicious intent from the company, I mean, nobody is twirling a mustache in a boardroom here.
Right. They're just trying to build their site.
Exactly. But their physical requirements go from simply demanding capacity to actively dictating the sequence and the physical geography of a town's future development.
The GOA thesis calls this an OS shift, an operating system shift.
OS shift, that is a great way to put it.
Because the most important question in these deals is no longer what terms are being exchanged on paper, like dollars per megawatt.
Right.
The real question is, who holds the power to measure, define, and later change the operating conditions of the town? By dictating the engineering realities, the tech company is holding the steering wheel. They are literally writing the code for the town's physical future.
Man. So if the dynamic is this lopsided and the old model of just throwing tax incentives at a corporation is actively dangerous for a town's long-term health, how do we actually play this game?
It's the million-dollar question.
What does redefining regional competitiveness look like in the AI era?
Well, a truly strong region isn't one that blindly clears every hurdle to attract an AI company. In fact, a competitive region is one that has the institutional strength to make all of those hidden delayed costs completely visible before a single contract is signed.
So they drag those year 10 burdens right into the day 1 negotiations.
Precisely. It means forcing ironclad agreements on upfront maintenance allocations.
Setting the boundaries early.
Exactly. It means establishing legal frameworks that say, look, if our local baseload power generation has to increase to stabilize your facility, you are directly funding the grid upgrades required, not our residential ratepayers.
Right. And what about the long-term risk of the physical building itself? Because we are talking about massive, highly specialized concrete structures packed with custom liquid cooling lines.
Yeah, they aren't easily repurposed.
What happens in 15 years if the company just pivots?
That is where strong regions mandate post-exit asset cleanup bonds.
Oh, like a deposit?
Basically, yes. They require the company to put money in escrow up front. If the tech giant eventually abandons the facility for a newer model in another state, they are legally and financially obligated to dismantle the site and restore the local grid.
Rather than leaving the municipality with a toxic, unreusable concrete husk?
Exactly.
So they are building in the right to adapt.
The formal term the GOA uses is preserving recovery capacity.
Recovery capacity.
It's the ability of a local system to stay fluid, to absorb the shock of a massive corporate footprint without becoming completely, rigidly locked into serving a single entity at the expense of its own survival.
If a town surrenders its recovery capacity, it becomes structurally fragile.
Very fragile.
Yeah.
But if it retains that power, it can renegotiate terms as the technology evolves.
This entirely flips the script on how we should be viewing these major economic
It
announcements.
really does.
Because we are fundamentally no longer in a competition over who can be the most attractive to AI companies by offering, the cheapest land and the lowest
That a
regulations.
race to the bottom is over.
Right. We are entering a global, high-stakes competition over who has the leverage to negotiate the smartest infrastructure burden-sharing terms.
It is a vastly more difficult game to play, requiring immense political courage and technical foresight. But honestly, it is the only approach that guarantees a municipality won't bankrupt its own future just to host someone else's servers.
Absolutely. So, to you listening right now, we really want to bring the stakes of this directly to your front door.
Keep an eye on your local news.
Yes, exactly. The next time you see a news story celebrating a massive new data center breaking ground in your state, or maybe even your county, don't just look at the dollar signs in the headline.
There's always more to the story.
Look beneath the surface. Ask yourself, who is actually absorbing the drain on the water supply? Who is paying to reinforce the power grid? And most importantly, who is now holding the remote control to your town's infrastructure?
And if we look even further down the road, it leaves us with one incredibly pressing question to ponder. We've explored how these AI companies are effectively cooperating public utilities to support their immense physical needs, right?
Right, they're digging their roots in deep.
But technology is ruthlessly fast. What happens if the underlying architecture evolves?
Like, how do you mean?
Well, what if next-generation AI models suddenly become hyper-efficient, utilizing quantum processing or localized edge computing?
And they don't need the massive cooling towers anymore.
Exactly. What if they no longer require these colossal, power-hungry warehouses? Who is left holding the bag for a town that hardwired its entire 50-year master plan to a ghost town of obsolete servers?